So this is our last panel of this afternoon of mystery. So if you're just joining us this afternoon, we're so glad that you've made it. I'm Rachel. I'm the Adult Outreach and Event Coordinator for the Greenville County Library System, and I'm excited to hear what our local authors and Katrina have to say next. If this is your first time using Zoom, again, be sure to familiarize yourself with that mute button in the bottom left of your screen. You're going to want to stay muted throughout the panel. So it's time to start the show. Allow me to introduce the moderator for this afternoon. Howard G. Lewis is past president of the Upstate South Carolina chapter of Sisters in Crime. Author and blogger, Howard has written 3 books, a cozy, a romance, and a young adult. Right now, these books only live on his hard drive. He lives in the foothills of South Carolina with a horse, a mule, 3 dogs, and some pretty fish. In his spare time, Howard teaches Tai Chi, writes, rides, and works wood. And I'll be posting his website in the chat as well. Welcome, Howard. Thank you for moderating today.
Hello, welcome. Hello, everyone. I've never done this before, so please be gentle with me. I want to start out by thanking the organizations that were involved. The first is our local upstate South Carolina Sisters in Crime. Before the pandemic, before COVID, we would meet first Thursday of every month at a local restaurant. We would eat, and dues were $15 a month. I mean a year. It wasn't bad. Since then, we still do first Thursday, but it's Zoom, which means that we don't collect dues. They're all cheap. Nobody's feeding us food. And I know we have at least one member that actually Zooms from her bed. I'm not going to say who, but I'm looking at her right now. Since we have no dues, you know, if you want to be on our list, if you want to find out when we're Zooming, just send a note to Sally. Sally's our president, and she will fix you up. We'll have a speaker each month. Sometimes they're from the writing world, which means we'll have writers or publishers or editors or agents. Other times we'll have something from the law enforcement. So we have sheriffs, we have judges, we've had lawyers, we had the coroner, and you believe it or not, the coroner, he was a hoot. He was a wonderful, wonderful speaker. We even had a psychic. So pretty much anything that our members need, we'll try to get for them. The National Sisters in Crime, if you were here for Katrina's talk, you heard a lot about the National Sisters in Crime. And it was actually created to help fight the discrimination against women in publishing. Because of that, it's very inclusive, which means you can be a published writer, an unpublished writer, you can be a non-writer, just basically any Jill wandering down the street that's got money can join. For that fact, any Jack walking down the street with money can join. They are inclusive and they will allow them in. But it's a wonderful organization. They have very educational, 4,500 members, 70 local chapters. So it's just a good organization. And Katrina is the past president. I want to talk about the library for a minute because everybody would assume that writers hate libraries. They give away our product. Right? You go there, you get a book, you read it for free, author gets nothing. But in fact, we love libraries because that's where we got our love for writing. I mean, that's where we all spent time. The Greenville Library, who is the co-sponsor of this event, they have about 750,000 books. They have 160 audiovisual things. They have about 250,000 people that are borrowers. Last year, they loaned out 2.77 million items. Think if you had $1 for every item that I'm getting back to that, they're paying us. Okay, so here's what we would like. Go to your local library, support them, find a book, read the author that you really like, immediately go out and buy all of their books for yourself, buy all of their books for your friends, buy all of your books for the Secret Santa at work, and we'll all be happy. So let's talk about our panel. First, we have Cindy Blackburn. Now, Cindy is from Vermont and she hates snow, which is how we were lucky enough to get Cindy in the upstate. However, every summer she goes back to Vermont, locks herself in a cabin and writes. And you can see it in Cindy's work. She has 2 series. There's the Cassie Baxter series and there's the Cue Ball series. They're both humorous cozies. They're both extremely funny. My favorite, of course, is the Cue Ball series because the protagonist is a young lady who worked her way through school hustling pool. And you can't beat that. If you want to read a good book, sit down, drink a glass of wine, laugh out loud occasionally, that's Cindy's books. She's got the fourth of her Cassie Baxter series coming out this spring. Look for it, buy it for your friends. Next, we have Kelly Garrett. Now, Kelly is coming to us through the magic of Zoom. Kelly was a previous TV writer. She worked in Hollywood for 8 years. She decided she'd try her hand in novel writing, and she was moderately successful with her first novel. I mean, that moderately successful if you consider it Anthony and Agatha. What is it?
Lefty.
Lefty, IPPY. She's in Book Bub's 100 best crime novels of all time. That's a moderate success that we would all love to have. So her second novel. Okay, so she was nominated for an Anthony. She was nominated for a Lefty, but she did make Today's Show Best Summer Read in 2019. So right now, her current book that's coming out is #Own Voices. She's working hard at it, and if the past is any indication, it's going to be wonderful. I'm reading Kelly's book right now. It's a really, really good read. She just does a nice job.
Thank you.
Sally Handley, who is our president. Sally does write, but she is a wonderful president. She's organized. She put all this together for us. She's intelligent. And we have a plan right now to change our bylaws so that Sally's permanent. All we need is for Sally to miss one meeting, and she'll have the job forever. Well, Sally, she started a critique group. The Cozy Writers Mystery Critique Group is for the upstate. So if you live in Greenville, you want to find a critique group, you write cozies, write Sally a note. She's published 4 books in her series Under the Tuscan Bloom. And it's a really nice series. She's done one standalone. She has a blog. You'll see her blog over in the chats. Check it out. Sally's an excellent writer. I've been reading her book, and she's very, very good. Polly Iyer. Now, Polly is an artist. She was a freelance illustrator for Women's Wear Daily. And she did this whenever she lived in Rome, Italy. And she continued to do this when she moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Not sure. But that's where she met her husband. They started a couple of businesses, and then Polly took up writing. She has written 10 novels that are suspense novels, and she's written 4 novels on what she calls sexy romances under a pseudonym, and they are sexy and they are romances. 4 of her novels are the Diana Ryson series, and I really love the Diana Ryson series because Diana, she's a young lady who worked early as a fake psychic, acting like a real psychic when she was actually a real psychic. But I pulled one of Polly's books off my shelf to read to get ready for this, and I couldn't put it down until I'd read half the book. Just an excellent writer. By her books. Linda Lovely. Linda Lovely has written for most of her life. She got her first writing gig when she was a sophomore in college. Since then, she's written hundreds of magazine articles. She's written speeches. She's written how-to. She's done brochures, PR events. But then she discovered how much fun it was to sit down and plot murder. Since then, she's written 8 novels. She's gotten published 8 novels. They're everything from cozies to, she's got a historical romantic mystery. Her latest is, it's in an HOA and people are getting killed in the HOA. Now, her protagonist is an ex-Coast Guard investigator. But the main draw is people getting killed in an HOA. I have never met anybody that's ever lived in an HOA that would not be thrilled to find out that people are getting killed in an HOA. The last one is Katrina, and we heard a lot from Katrina. She lived in Scotland until 2010 when she moved to California. She claims to be a full-time author, but she also claims to read. She gardens, she cooks, she bakes, she runs, she cycles. She visited 43 of the states. She practices something that she calls Scotsman's thrift, which involves dumpster diving. And I don't even want to know about that, but she writes. She's an award-winning author, and I mean, she's got books and awards that I'm not even going to go into. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask our panel the question, which is, what do you wish someone had told you when you first started out? We're going to go in reverse order, which I'm sorry, Katrina, but that means you're first. We're going to give them, each one of them, a chance to answer that question.
Okay.
Give us an idea.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to start asking them questions about that. At the same time, I'm hoping that the audience and those of you who are writing in will be asking questions about it. Once again, Rachel has agreed to moderate the questions for us so that I don't have to keep up with it, because I'm not honestly that bright. Once we get through that, hopefully your questions will pertain to that topic or to whatever it is that we're discussing at that time. We will open up the questions for anybody. If we run out of those, then I will ask some embarrassing questions of our panel. Most of them involve writing. Katrina, how you doing?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't run anymore. I go on a trampoline now. I need to update my website. You know, it's the knees. I started skipping at home when the gym closed and gave myself bursitis, which is a funny sounding. I just think it sounds like a comedy illness. But trampoline, anyone who's thinking I can't pound on concrete anymore. Anyway, that's not the question. So I have been thinking about this question a lot, and I think it's really tough for me, because if you're happy with where you are and you believe that the only way to get here was the way you came, then you get into like difficult sort of philosophical area when you think, what would you change? However, I would have written the first novel I ever wrote was in 2001, and it could have been a mystery novel. And in the end, it was a mystery novel, because I rewrote it and I published it in 2015. But I didn't write it as a mystery novel. And I also wrote 2 other novels that weren't mystery novels. And they could have been, they were so close. And I would have joined this community of crime fiction writers straight out of the box if I'd known what it was like here, and that this was my tribe, that this was the mothership. That's what I would have changed. But then, maybe I would have been less happy here if I hadn't had the experience of. I'm not much of a regretter. I can't really. I'm maybe going to pass. Can I pass this on? And then if someone else says something that sparks something up for me, I'll maybe put my hand up and get it to come back. I would have given. So I wrote these 2 novels under the name Katrina McLeod that were packaged as women's fiction. And I would have just given them the slightest nudge, because there were puzzles in them, there were crimes in them, and I would have had them be crime fiction. And I think that would have worked out better.
Right. Linda.
There are 2 things that are, I think, related. One of them is, don't compare yourself to other writers. And if I worried about whether or not my prose could be as poetic as Pat Conroy's on the Low Country, I wouldn't set my book down there. Or if I was worried about my dialogue being great, as Robert B. Parker, or as funny as Katrina or Janet Ivanovich. We all have something unique to give. So I think that basically, don't worry about comparing yourself to anybody else. And the related thing is, join a book club. I hang out with writers all the time. And we talk about point of view and whether something is passive and the structure of the story. And you join a book club and you find out they don't give a crap about any of this. It's whether or not it's a good story. And I think that if you worry too much about the mechanics, sometimes you forget that it's just the story that is really important, or the mystery, and go from there. And the one other thing that I think I learned along the way was don't stay in a bad relationship. And this pertains to agents, it pertains to your book publishers, it pertains to critique partners. Uh, Find people that you're really happy with and enjoy, and that you work together as a team. And don't be fearful if you find that you really need to move on from a situation that isn't making you happy.
I, can I can I come back and just say absolutely, absolutely yes. I think trust your instincts. Don't think this is a new world. Maybe things are different here. There's mystique here. Maybe I don't understand what's happening. If you've got a really bad vibe about someone, trust your instincts, same as you would anywhere else. Yes, Linda.
Thank you. Polly.
I thought about this a lot too, and I think the time when I first started writing, and I didn't know anything, and if it hadn't been for Sisters in Crime, I probably would still not know anything, because I met some of these wonderful women here that guided me through, and I was very fortunate. But what worked for me in 2008 or 9 or 10 wouldn't work for me now. So the fact that publishing has changed so much, and what we needed to do back then wouldn't relate to what we needed to do now. I think one of the things that I wish I had done, or I wish somebody had told me to do, was to create a mailing list and to learn about marketing, because I'm terrible at it. I just suck. I'm not good at promoting myself, and I wish I had learned how to do that better. Done.
Sally.
I had to unmute myself. Okay, so I too agonized thinking about an answer to this question, because when I first started to write the Holly and Ivy mystery, you know, I discovered the International Women's Writers Guild in New York and New Jersey, and I went to workshops, and then I found a writing class to take. And what I found was it almost became overwhelming with the amount of advice and direction that you were being given, so that became sort of a distraction and almost paralyzed me, because you'd sit down at a computer and, you know, you'd start writing and then you go, wait a minute, am I telling or am I showing? Or like, uh-oh, there's some adverbs here, and you cross out all the adverbs because people told you adverbs are no good now, and reduce your word count by like 25%, taking out all the adverbs. And you know what I mean? Like, all this writing advice keeps coming at you, and so that it almost stops you from writing. And so I came up with not one, but 2 pieces of advice that I wish somebody had told me, and that I would tell somebody trying to start out. No matter how inadequate you feel as a writer, just sit down and write, right? Just sit down and do it. You can take all the classes you want. You're not going to get better if you don't write. And writing is an art, but it's also a skill, and you can't improve it if you don't practice it. So I just published the 4th book in my Holly and Ivy series, and my most favorite reader comment is, it's the best in the series. And, you know, I hope that people say that about every one of my books, because I hope they keep getting better. I hope for that. And then the second thing that I would say to, or that I wish is similar to what Linda said, which is, don't worry about the competition, because not only are we competing with like thousands of mystery writers out there right now, we're competing with Jane Austen, and we're competing with Shakespeare, and we're competing with Dickens, because people are still checking those books out of the library. So I don't know if and again, Linda said this, which is you have a unique story to tell, and you can only tell it. Nobody can tell it like you can tell it. And I seem to hear that a lot now, but I don't remember hearing it when I was starting out. And well, I just, shameless promotion, Polly, that's one of the things that I was in marketing. So I know you got to shamelessly promote. I just put this book out. It's just been published, and I haven't really done a lot of marketing on it right now. It's called Stop the Threat. It's a suspense novel. It's a standalone, not part of my series. And I have created an imaginary town in South Carolina where teachers are required to carry guns. Now, I couldn't have written this book if I hadn't been a teacher. I couldn't have written this book if I hadn't moved to South Carolina. I couldn't have written this book if I hadn't attended the Malden Citizens Police Academy, where I got the idea for this novel in the active shooter class that we took. And even I participated in a simulation training program as part of that Malden Citizens Police Academy. And I wrote about that in this book. And I also don't think I could have written this if I hadn't written those Holly and Ivy Cozy Mysteries. So ultimately, my advice to anyone writing is just, put the negativity aside. Don't worry about who you're competing with. You have a story to tell that only you could tell in the voice that you've got. And I'm going to plug somebody else's book. I don't know if any of you get this, have read Good Morning, Good Night by Lin-Manuel Miranda, whom I think is just a genius. But he gives little, it's called Little Pep Talks from Me to You, right? And I do read these in the morning and at night. And my favorite one is this one. I'll leave you with this. Good morning. You've got stuff in your head that no one else has got. And you've got stuff in your head that you think you bear alone, but I promise you share with so many. Only way to know the difference is to spill it out on paper, into a mic, to a shrink, onto a canvas. Let's go. Just do it. I'm done.
Just do it sounds like a sneaker. Kelly.
Hi. So first, thank you for having me. I guess I will keep it short. I think the one thing that I wish I knew back then when I first started, which was like 2017, is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think people get it confused with like movies where you have to have that big blockbuster the first week and then your movie kind of disappears. Like I said, my book came out in 2017, and like I think was it Sally who said that like we're competing with Jane Austen, not saying that any of us are Jane Austen, but just the idea of people find new books every day, and so I have people who found my book this year in 2021 and it came out in 2017, and so it was a new book for them. So I wish I understood that. I would have been a lot less stressed, I think, 4 years ago. I think the other things, and I'm not going to go into detail about this, but just the idea of one, you're your own biggest advocate. No one's going to care about your career as much as you do. But then on the flip side, you pick your battles. You don't want to have to be the person who fights and pushes back on everything. So for me, I just pick the things that are really important to me and I let other things go. So that's it.
Postman came.
Cindy.
Well, I think I started writing, I was fiction after I was 40. And my advice is if you want to write, start now. Katrina said in her earlier talk that she wrote when she was a child, and then, life happened and did a bunch of other things. And then you started writing again. I think you said you were 35. Well, when I was in elementary school, I wrote some short stories and, class assignments. And the teacher, I remember two in particular, and the teachers just loved my stories. But then I got into junior high and high school, and I was college bound. So I learned how to write the 5-paragraph essay, which is like the death of any creative writer, in my opinion. And I didn't get back into fiction writing until into my 40s. And looking back, I wish I had dabbled in fiction, even if I was doing other things in my life. So start now, and people have been saying, don't be discouraged. Maybe don't even think about, getting your book published or how you're going to sell your book. If you want to write, it's because you love to write. And so just go ahead and do that. And then something Sally said hit me also, the idea that there's all these lessons to learn, and certainly there are, but just start writing. I remember one of the earlier conferences I went to 15 years ago. I didn't think I had characterization quite right. So I went to a couple seminars on characterization. And one in particular, I think of often, there was like a 7-page questionnaire you were supposed to fill out about your 3 main characters or your 2 main characters. What is so-and-so's favorite color and what is their favorite childhood memory? And, I'm writing my books. I still don't know. I do know Jessie Hewitt's favorite color. It's yellow. She's the Cue Ball Mysteries person. I don't know what Cassie Baxter's favorite color is. And you know what? I've written 4 books about Cassie Baxter. There you have it. So don't let anything kind of make you stumble and stop. Just go ahead and start writing and see where it leads. See what you like to write. Maybe you don't want to write fiction. Maybe it's nonfiction, but you have to start and see where your talent is, where your passion is, and keep going from there.
Excellent. So how do you keep going from there? Several of you have mentioned that you just write. You just keep on writing. That's the big thing is you write. You can't get better unless you write. Okay. How about some advice on just keeping writing? How do you not let it get you down? What do you do whenever you're having one of those days that you don't want to do anything? Anybody? Because I will call on you individual if you don't volunteer.
I will keep going. I loved Katrina's idea about pretending someone is filming me because I am so famous. And I'm going to try that. Because I don't like the rough draft. I like that final revision. That's when I start enjoying it. But that's usually a year after I've started writing the book. So for me, the hard part is the rough draft or even the first 2 to 3 drafts. But if I pretend that somebody is filming me for a PBS series, I think I might be able to do a rough draft a little faster. I'd probably dress a little better while I'm writing also.
It's not as bonkers as it sounds, because when I first thought of this, no, it can't have been when I first thought of this, but it did happen. Someone did this about Annie Proulx, and there was one about Minette Walters. There was a special on being a writer, and there was lots of footage of Annie Proulx and Minette Walters sitting typing. And there was also Annie Proulx taking her manuscript to the post office in Centennial, Wyoming, and handing it over to the postmistress. And I had been in Centennial, Wyoming, and I had seen that postmistress, and she does not look like that every day. She'd had hot rollers on for the day that she was filmed with Annie Proulx handing over her manuscript.
You're telling all her business, Katrina. It's her business.
Oh, I know. She that would be so funny if she was here, wouldn't it? Like, how dare you? What Sally said about the proliferation of websites and blogs and books and seminars, and everyone's saying, I can't make a living as a writer, I'm going to try making a living as a writing instructor. Wah, 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 wah. I would say, with the exception of Stephen King's book on writing, this isn't the question, but never mind, the more dogmatic someone is, like that 7 pages of character stuff that you were talking about, Cindy, the more sure someone sounds that they've got the trap door to success and you just need to stand on it and give them $80, the more skeptical I would be about them. And certainly that, I think, was it you that I was talking to about this recently, Kelly, about that every time you write something down, you've slammed a door shut, you know, like a book you haven't written yet, everything's open. And no, maybe it wasn't us. Everything's open, but as soon as you decide something about your character, that door's shut. So if you've decided what someone's favorite color is before you write book 1, then if you need that for a nice little clue in book 4, too bad, it's gone.
Yeah.
I would say the exact opposite, but then, you know, you just ignore me instead because I'm doing it now. But I would always start, like most writing workshops, if I teach them, start with, if this works for you, just scroll through your text and ignore everything I'm saying. If you're having trouble with this and what I'm saying sounds sensible and not completely insane, maybe try it, but no more than that.
I've written 14 books and I have absolutely, am I on here?
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea how I finished any of them. I mean,
It's easy to forget how
I
hard it
don't know
was.
how I get from the beginning of that book until the end of that book, because I am a pantser and the story evolves as I write it, like you said, Katrina. And I at the end, I'm like amazed that I actually finished it.
I'm the opposite, where like I have very bad like short-term memory, so I forget how hard a book is. And like I'll see my book and I'm like, oh, obviously it was brilliant from page 1, which it wasn't. So then when I'm actually trying to like write the new book and it's so hard, I'm like, why is this so hard? Like I have to remind myself, like, oh, the other book was crap too. And you kept working at it and you kept rewriting it and it got better. And so just keep working at this one and rewriting it, and hopefully it will also get better. So
Does
I'm
any,
big on secondary characters, and I don't think that you can create secondary characters in an outline. I just don't think that it comes to you until you get to that story.
I'm a super plotter. I'm 25-page outline. So I think
Well,
I can get over everything. Everything can come together in an outline.
totally different
Wow.
styles. Some
Well, in
Getting
keeping
back-
writing,
Mhm.
I'd like to make a plug for critique groups.
Yeah.
Even now with Zoom, critique groups, we get together every one group 2 weeks, and we can send 5 to 10 pages. And if you're having some problems or distractions, you'll have to have those 5 to 10 pages, and it sort of keeps you over the hump.
Another suggestion is I same thing, like having a writing buddy, and I do what you call sprinting, where you guys both sit there and you go, okay, go, and then you both just write as much as you can and not rewrite or think about things for 25 straight minutes. You don't go on the internet, you don't do anything else, you just sit there and write, and then you take a break and you check in with each other, and then you do another sprint. You know, and I know a lot of other people who have like written full books just by sprinting with people. So that's saying, if you need to be motivated, try to find a writing buddy to sprint with.
is your writing buddy the same style as you?
You mean in terms of 25-page out? I don't think anyone does 25-page outlines except for me. But no, I mean, we're just both writers, you know, we're both trying to get something finished. And so you can do sprinting for anything. Like you can do sprinting for research or for outlining or for character work. It can be anything. I have a friend who does it for like she's planning her podcast. So she does podcast research and questions. So.
does anybody else get public service announcements from the universe? I have had this happen to me, and I don't know if it's just because I'm too open to suggestion, but I remember one day I was particularly discouraged, you know, like the same thing that everybody talks about. Oh God, I can't, you know, why am I doing this? Like there's so many better writers than me out there. Who's going to want to read this? And my main character is named Holly. And when I was writing this, I discovered on this particular day that I was feeling discouraged that Stephen King writing a mystery. This was the start of the Mr. Mercedes series.
Oh,
His main character's name was Holly. And I have to tell you, that just made me feel encouraged. I thought, well, if I have a character that he's named the same as his character, or another time, and I have to tell you, this is the funniest story of all. I had just written about this character who was white. You know, she was a Jersey girl, tough talking, gum cracking, you know, type of character, right? And this again was a day when I was just thinking, like, I really could be doing better things with my time. This is a waste. Nobody's ever going to read my stuff. I have to go to a store to pick out flooring. I go to the store and there's a woman. I walk in and she looks at me and she goes, can I help you? And with a real Jersey accent, she goes, yeah, just go in the back of the store and I'll be there with you when I'm finished. So just go take a look and see what you want and then I'll talk to you. So then later I come out and I sit down and I'm talking with her and she goes, and here's the thing, I forgot to tell you this one thing. My character's name was Teresa Nowicki. So I sit down with this woman, she goes, hi, my name's Teresa. And I thought, oh my God, this is my character. I have to keep writing this book. You know, it was just these bizarre little incidents happened to me when I'm most discouraged that make me go, yeah, you got to keep going.
I've got another on this question of how to keep writing. This is from the autobiography of Lauren Graham, who was Lorelei Gilmore Sr. in Gilmore Girls, because all my references are so highfalutin, right? But has anyone else read this memoir? It's called I'm Talking as Fast as I Can, and it's a lot of fun. But she has also written a novel, and she says that her way through, and this is not hers, she got it from someone else, and I can't remember who, her way to keep writing when it's hard is to say for half an hour, she has 2 tabs open on her laptop. So she's got her draft and she's got another file, which is her journal. And for half an hour, all she can do is add words to her draft or write in her journal about how it feels to not be adding words to her draft. And she says it's so boring and embarrassing to try and describe how it feels to not be adding words to her draft, that makes her get words down every day. And I thought that resonated with me, because, you know, the sort of shame always works on me.
So we're going to keep writing. You start, you're going to finish. You do your first draft. You blaze through the first draft. And Kelly, I actually did see somebody at a writers conference, and he does 150-page outlines.
That's not just a book that's not fully formed. He's add some dialogue, he'll be good.
It's really easy to write the book after that. Excuse me. So as you go through your drafts, the 6 drafts or the 7 drafts, do you have any particular methodology that you use going through the drafts? Or as you go through the drafts, do you just start at the beginning of the book, go to the end of the book, start at the beginning, go to the end? Kelly?
I've got methodology, but I don't want to go first again. So someone else go.
I don't have any methodology, so you should go, Katrina.
Okay. So my second draft, I do the research after the first draft. Make everything up for the first draft, but keep a note of what I've made up. I mean, I used to do this more, but now when it's not like get on a train and go and see it, now when it's just Google it, you don't have to do that so much, but there's always some. So I put all the research in the second draft. So the second draft is huge. And then the third draft is paring down the stuff that I do. The third draft's usually smaller than the first draft. But everything that's there is the only stuff that's there is what I need. And then, yeah, I go through it. I say, right, I'm going to go through again for, like in Scott on the Rock, the Last Ditch series. I go through again to make sure that all the American characters are speaking American English is one of the things that I do. So gotten, all that stuff. And then I'll go through with colored tabs, saying, right, what's important and it's printed out at every stage. Is such a waste. Well, it's not a waste, but such a lot of paper. I'll say, right, so what are the themes, what are the elements of this book? And then stick a little colored sticky in every time that happens, and then just look at it side on to make sure that there's not, that color's not missing anywhere. And then move them about, do that one time, and then fix the mess that makes. Check that there's not one chapter that's 8 pages and one chapter that's 38 pages, maybe in the next time. So yeah. Well, see, the monolithic again, I can only do one thing at a time. I can only edit one thing at a time. Huh.
So you print it out every time. Do you actually make the revisions in the hard copy?
Yep, with a blue Bic crystal.
Not to be specific.
Not to be specific, no. Yeah.
I do the same thing. I don't do the thing with the tabs, but regularly I type on my computer and then I print out some pages. And I used to teach history, so I'm used to grading essays. And so it's hard to even see the typewritten part because I have so much writing, and I'll write in 3 or 4 pages, and I'll do that 2 or 3 times for a scene. And then I'll do that through the whole book, and then I'll go back and I'll start printing it out again. And darned if that page isn't corrected just as much as it was the first time I wrote it out. But yeah, I revise on paper and then I type it in. And I think I see things when it's on paper that I would not correct if it was just on my computer screen. And I just like the process of writing. So I like writing on paper. And sometimes I write the first draft, not the whole first draft, but if I have a scene in my head, I prefer writing longhand, and so I'll write it out sometimes and then type it in. I think your brain thinks differently when you're writing versus typing. So I do both.
I take a different approach. I'm just not capable of doing a first draft and just keeping writing. So every day when I write, the next day, the first thing that I do is revise and edit. So I'm polishing as I go along. And I saw that there was a question on there, what happens if you're going in the wrong direction? Well, I may end up moving things around or changing things or dropping a chapter, but pretty much I'm doing a finished draft all the way through. But then when I get to the end, I port it over to my Kindle and I read it like a book. And I find things doing that I would never see on the computer screen. So maybe like you're reading on a paper copy. When I'm reading it as a book, it just picks up things that I hadn't seen before.
I do it a lot like Linda. Same process. Only it takes me a lot longer time to do the beginning of a book than it does for any other part of the book, maybe 2 or 3 times longer.
Yep.
To do the first maybe 10,000 words.
Cindy, do you read on a Kindle or an e-reader?
I have a Kindle I haven't used in years. I read on my iPhone.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if we read on paper because we read on paper as readers as well as writers, but no.
I do both.
No.
I find that if I have an old-fashioned book in my hand, it keeps my attention more. There's a lot of books on my e-reader, my phone, that I'll read, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 pages, and I'll get bored and I won't finish those books. If I have a paper book, maybe it's because I've spent some more time choosing it from the library or whatever, I almost always finish that book. But there's so many ebooks that I haven't finished. That maybe it's because I just have a lot of stuff on there that that probably I shouldn't have on there. But so I do both. I like reading on my iPhone because I'm an insomniac, so I can read in the middle of the night without turning a light on, waking my husband up. So that's good. So I do both.
I have to say, I avoid printing things out at all costs. I love working on the computer. I I used to write like things out, I don't know, like maybe 100 years ago, but now that I work on a computer, I can't write anything on paper.
But maybe you can, Sally, because I would have said that I couldn't write on paper. Then I broke my arm and I had to because I couldn't type. And so I wrote the first 40,000 words of a novel with a pen. I broke the non-writing arm, and I was really scared that I wouldn't be able to do it. And it was exactly the same. I couldn't tell the difference. So maybe.
I am.
But I'm not recommending it. If there's no reason to do it, don't do it. But I would say don't be freaked out if you ever find yourself without your computer, because you might be able to.
I have horrible handwriting, so I can't do it because I would never be able to read it. But one thing I do is I keep journals for each book. And so I will do a lot of just free thought where I'll just like literally, like, you can't tell, but I'll just, if I have to think of a character or a plot point or a scene, I'll just write things out, and whatever I'm thinking, I'll just put it on paper, you know, and sometimes I go in the wrong direction with a scene or a plot, and I'll have to just have that, and I'll just keep going until I have it to a place where I want it to be. And then once I'm pretty sure I kind of know what the scene is, then I will go and I will write it. Because if I don't have an idea, like I'm not a pantser, like I can't see a blank page and just like come up with something. I have to have some kind of idea before I can put the brilliance down, I guess. So yeah, so I think this is like my third notebook for my current work in progress, like a sister, you know. So I fill these notebooks up with just random stuff and then try to figure out what I wrote like later, try to read my handwriting. But that's like my process.
How do you find the stuff that you've written in there?
I'll just go through. The cool thing is it does have little like this, so I can, if there's one important part, but I will occasionally will just like go through and see what I wrote, you know. And so it's not like anything like super important, like don't forget this, like if that, I'll put it in the document, like in a comment section. But it's just, you know, anything I'm thinking about, and free thought really helps me. I just let my brain be free. So.
Anything else? Okay, one of the comments was about how publishing has changed. And then we talk about promotion, self-promotion. And then we talk about that somebody really wishes they learned more about websites, about promotion, about, yeah. What do y'all do for publicity? How do you publicize yourself? How are you your own advocate?
I've already said I'm terrible.
I just think you do what you want to do. Like, I don't like newsletters, so I don't have one. And there are some people who are great at newsletters, and that's great. I love Twitter. And so if you want, like, I will promote anyone on Twitter. I would retweet anybody, you know, and like I retweet people, and like, so you follow me on Twitter, you're going to get a lot of book news, you know? So my thing is just do what you feel comfortable doing. I think there's a pressure of, oh, I have to start a newsletter. Oh, I have to be on Instagram. Especially now Bookstagram, you know? And I'm just like, just do what you enjoy. There's so many parts to the business that you don't enjoy, that like do what you enjoy. And then hopefully people will realize that and will respond to that. You know, like on Twitter, I have like 8,000 followers, and I like to think it's because I enjoy it, what I'm doing on there, and do good content because I enjoy it. So
I second Twitter. I use Twitter. Twitter is my baby. I love Twitter. And there's a lot of writers on there, and we help each other out. We retweet, etc. Just recently, I have just published on Amazon Unlikely in ebook form. It's the fourth Cassie Baxter, and just started tweeting it this last 3 days. And somebody tweeted back, is it on audio? Because I like to listen to books. And it isn't. And I said, I tweeted back, I'm going to try to do that sometime soon. And I decided, well, you know, I want to retweet this woman, see what, you know, help her out. Well, she's from Peru. And all of her tweets were in Spanish, except the tweets that she tweeted to me about my book. And it's like, how would I have a reader or anyone interested in my book in Peru without Twitter? I just love Twitter. I have two people who've agreed to review my book because they are book bloggers and reviewers. I've met both of them, or met on Twitter. So I love Twitter. I think it's great, and it's easy and fun, and I don't know. I can come up with little trite things about my books, and I have fun with Twitter. And
I
I
love
have fun
Twitter.
retweeting
Yeah.
other people too.
I love Twitter. I love some people who are on Facebook. I love some people who are on Facebook, but I don't love Facebook. I love Twitter, but I've used both. I was at a Sisters in Crime Sink into Great Writing before BoucherCon a few years ago, and it was about promotion. And one of the first questions was, does anyone here not have a newsletter? And I was sitting near the front because I'm a SWAT. I put my hand up and there was like an audible gasp. And I turned around to see who else didn't have a newsletter. And I was the only person that had her hand up. I'm sure I wasn't the only person without a newsletter. I'm sure there were some people who thought, well, I'm not going to admit to this. And I thought, oh. And so I got one, and I think I did 3 newsletters. I paid a publicist to help me, and I learned how to use MailChimp, and I wrote 3 newsletters, and I just hated it. I hated having to, if something nice happened, wait, put it in your newsletter, don't tell anyone, instead of just putting it on Twitter and going, yay. So after 3, I just stopped and just folded the tent and went back to Twitter and Facebook, and then I was happy again, because it was one of the things that I was thinking, it made me feel as if I was back working in the university. I thought, how have I done this? How have I managed to find the bit of this wonderful writing career that makes me feel as if I'm back in a faculty meeting? Ugh. So I just stopped. And yeah, I'm not agog for anyone else's newsletters, to be honest. But maybe if you like reading newsletters, then it's a good idea. Maybe you write better ones.
I just saw a note from Drew Ann that basically you have to do what you're comfortable with. Twitter is not my cup of tea. And I think part of it has to do with who your audience is too. My heroine in the new series is over 50, and I've had older heroines in some. And the audience is more Facebook, I think, than Twitter. And I don't mind Facebook. And the other advantage of a newsletter, and I used to make my living writing newsletters, so and other PR, so that's part of it. But a newsletter also is something that you control, and the social media can't take your audience like on Facebook away from you by saying, I'm going to change the algorithm here. You have your own audience that have been fans, and no matter what the other social media changes, that's not going to change. Unfortunately, about 2 years ago, I fell down our basement steps and had a really bad accident, and I didn't get back to writing the newsletter, and I'm just going to start again. But it was my best tool.
I think what Linda says is right. If you're good at it and you know how to do it, and you started, like Polly was saying, and you started at the time when it would have been the most sensible time to start it, great.
I use Amazon ads. I don't know if anybody else has tried that. And there's a young man named Brian Cohen who constantly offers free classes. And I've taken his class 3 times, and it took 3 times before I because I would do a couple of ads and I wouldn't get any clicks and I wouldn't get any sales, but I'm doing a little bit better, not tremendously, but I am doing better with that. And I feel comfortable with it. I like Amazon. I've joined many groups on
this week.
Did someone say something? I belong to a lot of groups. There are lots of cozy mystery groups. And so when I have something that I post, I post it in and share it in all those groups. And I find that is a good way to reach, the secret to marketing, having been in marketing, is to reach your readers. Not everybody is a cozy mystery reader, right? So, to belong to these cozy mystery groups is really a good place to be. But you you know, like my preference is to speak in groups. Like I love to go to book clubs. I love to go to garden clubs because my characters are gardeners. And whenever I, you know, speak publicly, I do pretty well at the and sell books out. So the pandemic has put a real damper on marketing, and but you got to find where the people are who would read your stuff. And yeah, I use Twitter a little bit, but it's always kind of like an afterthought. Now I also do a blog as opposed to a newsletter, but you know, I don't blog very often at all. And I have got to tell you, I wrote a blog from the point of view of my dog Trixie that I sent out last week, and I got more rage for her for her blog than I did for, you know, like any of the past 10 blogs that I got. So, you know, I don't know what to, I said, I think I have to start a series from Trixie's point of view. I think.
Cozy readers love animals, so somewhat surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, those are just a couple of things that I do to market.
My books don't appeal to cozy readers. So, I mean, maybe they do, but they're a little bit darker and language, and so that I probably cut off some readers just because of the way I write. But that's the way I write.
Is there a comparable set of online groups for your audience, Polly?
Well, I mean, people that like suspense and thrillers, they find me. In the beginning, when I first started, I did really well because of BookBub mainly. And now BookBub is way over my head price-wise, and they actually even gave me a freebie. They contacted me and said, we're going to advertise your book. This is when they first started. And I mean, I had gazillion downloads, and for a few years did really well, but then everybody else is getting in on it. And now they don't want to advertise anybody that is Amazon exclusive because they get more clicks on somebody who publishes wide. So, I mean, when I started this, I said things from 2010 have changed so much to now, and that's one of them. So, yeah, I mean, I got a lot of reviews, and that was on my first 4 books. So the ones, how many? It's 6 since. I mean, some of them have quite a few reviews, but not as many as when I first started. So that's kind of discouraging in a way. And it just might be the way I write.
So I want to, I'm sorry, Polly, are you done?
No, go.
I want to, I also do Amazon ads. So the course that Sally talked about is called Amazon Ad School. And it is a week-long free course, and he's starting one. Brian Cohn is starting one, I think, tomorrow or on Monday, if anyone is interested. And yeah, you can take the free week. It's really intense, and you do need to take it 2 or 3 times. Don't just get discouraged if you get to day 3 and you're totally lost. You just have to keep doing it. So I do Amazon ads, and I've just started doing Facebook ads. And I haven't done one for the Cassie Baxter series, but I've done one for the Cue Ball mysteries, and it's helping. And it's not very expensive. I mean, you can spend as much as you want, but Twitter is free. Amazon ads and Facebook ads, you have to pay a little money, but I think it's worth it. And the interesting thing about my Facebook ad is you can direct it to certain people. So I think my books appeal to women more than men. So I just said, direct these to women, and you can kind of narrow down who's going to see your ad. And I said women over 35. And then my husband and I were looking at my results after a couple of weeks, and the people who were buying my books were women over 45. I mean, absolutely. So I could then narrow down my target even more. So I'm going to experiment with Facebook ads, and they're fun also to put together. My husband helps me with all the technology. I don't know if he thinks it's fun, but they're kind of fun to put together. And it's kind of like Twitter. You put a little ad, a cute little saying to get people to be interested in whatever that picture is or whatever. So that works for me pretty well too, or it started to. I'm new to it, but I'm going to continue those.
Okay, so we have a question. What project is everybody working on? What is your next thing coming out? What are you working on right now that you want to shamelessly promote? Go ahead, Sandy. You're
Well,
reaching.
I'll come back and promote my newest book, which is We Are But Warriors, and it is a political thriller that has gotten really, really good reviews. And it's kind of different for me to get into the politics of Israeli, United States political Palestinian problems, and the two leads are twin brothers, one handicapped from the Iraq War, Afghanistan, and the other one is a COVID operator. And it's a little different for me.
Yeah.
We read that
Wow.
book for the Mystery Book Club, Four Sisters in Crime, our local mystery book club. I highly recommend it. It was wonderful. So I give it total endorsement.
Thank
5
you.
stars.
Thank you.
The covers really, covers are important. The cover is extremely compelling.
Thank you,
I'll go
because
next.
I did it, so thank you. I do all
Someone-
my covers. I mean,
someone in the-
if I was in advertising art for 25 years, at least I can do my covers.
Someone in the chat box said, explain the importance of reviews, and I am going to answer the question you asked, Howard. But that's a really good point, because that's something that can help, but we can't do it for ourselves because that's wrong. Is a review, doesn't have to be a long review on Amazon, I would say. I don't know about Goodreads. It doesn't even have to be a good review. There's solid data that says if something's got good reviews and bad reviews, that's more enticing to readers than if it's only good reviews. Because, people are ornery, it's a great American word. If someone hates a book, someone wants to prove that they're wrong, and they'll buy it just to prove that they're wrong. My latest is really relevant. It's How to Write a Mystery by the Other People, Mystery Writers of America, excuse my language. We're all friends, right? How to Write a Mystery, edited by Lee Child, with the hard work of editing done by Laurie King. I've got a little piece in that. I'm just guessing, right? All the emails came from Laurie, put it that way. Mine in here is called Humor in Crime Fiction, but there is everything in here, right from it starts like to choose a genre, and it ends up with marketing and legal considerations. Absolutely everything is in here. Dialogue, setting, writing and partnership, secrets of a book critic, mysteries for children, the whole caboodle. So that's my latest, and I think it's out imminently.
Excellent. Cindy, I saw you reaching for something.
Well, I don't have the paperback. I don't know if y'all can see that. That's the cover to my new one. It's called Unlikely, and it's the fourth Cassie Baxter. It's just hot off the press. It just got up on Amazon just the last couple days. And Cassie and her 5-year-old son, his name is Truman, find a canoe way up in the woods on a mountain when they're bird watching one morning. And anyone who knows Cassie Baxter knows that if she finds an odd canoe, it only means trouble. And if Truman finds what he calls a treasure, it only means trouble. So that canoe obviously has something to do with a murder, and it's, I think, very fun and funny. So if you have spring fever and you want to just forget about your troubles and read something fun, I think you'd enjoy it. And it takes place in the spring. And I love my cover with the full moon. The full moon is part of the story. So that's
Cindy,
my latest. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. I think I'll do another cue ball. I think I might take a little bit of a break and try short stories for a little bit, try that, and then get back to my cue ball series.
Cindy and I are in the same critique group, and I can also highly recommend.
Thank you, Sally.
It's a delightful, cozy mystery.
Sally.
Oh, well, I started the 5th book in the Holly and Ivy mystery series, in which the sisters are reunited with their estranged sister Fern. Holly, Ivy, Fern, get it? So I'm working on that, but I'm seriously thinking about starting a new series from the point of view of the dog. After I read Dog by
Spencer Quinn.
Yeah, Spencer Quinn. I love that book, and I think I've got Trixie's voice down quite well. So I think I might do that. But I have to tell you, sitting in the back of my mind is the idea for this suspense story in which a librarian is the heroine, Shiro. Let's call her a Shiro. So those are the 3 things that are bubbling up in my head right now.
Kelly.
I already talked about it. I'm just working on a domestic suspense novel about a Black woman in New York who is looking into the mysterious overdose death of her estranged sister, who's a reality star.
Ooh.
It's in New York.
Yeah, I'm actually not local. So everyone kept saying local, and I was just like, I don't want to out myself, but I'm actually from New Jersey. So that's where I live. So it takes place in New Jersey and New York. I outed myself. I was going to try not to.
Linda.
This is my an advanced reader copy of my book that will be out in July. It's With Neighbors Like These. And I signed a 3-book contract with Level Best Books for the series. There are more than 40 million homes, townhouses, houses, condos in homeowner associations. And they're basically small towns. So anything that you can happen in a small town can happen in a homeowner association. And the heroine is this is set in the Low Country because I live in upcountry South Carolina and I don't want to be thrown out of my house. And I have made sure that none of the names in the book resemble or rhyme with any people in my neighborhood. But there are lots of different kinds of homeowner associations, and you see all types of characters. And in this book, the heroine goes to work as a security consultant for a friend that manages homeowner associations in the Low Country of South Carolina. And so there are a number of deaths that are attributed to feuds in the homeowner associations, but we really have someone that is using that as a pretense for getting rid of people. But it's very cathartic to get rid of the types of characters that annoy you in real life. So I've had a lot of fun writing this one.
Are they the people, like their neighbors, who just tell you what to do because it's written down somewhere? Is that what a homeowner
Well,
association
homeowner
is?
associations, yeah, they're all, there are some that are very busybody, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
grass can only be so tall, and
Yes, I'm thinking about it because I've got a good friend who said that a neighbour came round the day after her husband's funeral. Her husband died when her children were 4 and 6, and told her that she had to cut her grass.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now there might be a homeowners association involved there,
Mm.
Yes.
right? Wow.
Okay, so we've had a couple more questions and we're quickly running out of time. One is, could each panel member recommend a favorite local bookstore? There's somebody who likes to order your books from a local bookstore. I know we don't have that many local bookstores in our area.
Well, I live in Easley, and we have Poor Richard's bookstore here in downtown Easley. And Poor Richard's actually got a stipend, some sort of prize. That's not the right word.
We
From
love
Sisters in Crime. And we all, a bunch of us who are even on this panel, had a book signing there a couple years ago. But Poor Richard's has been around for a long time, and downtown Easley is a kind of interesting little place. We've got a train track running right down Main Street, and Poor Richard's is on one side. It's a cute bookstore, so I would recommend Poor Richard's for ordering paperbacks or getting. I think they have some of my books in paperback, so I highly recommend them.
I would like to
North Carolina.
recommend, I'd like to recommend Avid Reader in Davis, California. You can get my books signed from there because I'll always go in and sign them. But also the wonderfully named Alzada Knickerbocker owned it for a long time. She retired, and a young family, a couple and their children, took over last February. The last physical event I was at was the party to celebrate them taking over this bookstore, and they'd never done it before. The husband guy is a lawyer, and his wife, I don't know what she did, but she just had a couple of children, and they took over this exciting new thing last February, and then everything changed. So if you feel like supporting Avid Reader Davis, they're a wonderful bookshop. I've also got a soft spot. I've been ordering books from all over the country in the last year. I've got a huge soft spot for a store called Books and Crannies, which is in New York. Not New York City, but New York State somewhere, but Books and Crannies. They've got great stock.
Oh,
And so many more.
in
Once
Green,
Upon a Crime in Minneapolis. I've got to say that as well.
in Greenville, we have Fiction Addiction. I think that my first book is there, but my books are self-published, so they're mostly only available on Amazon.
Fiction Addiction has been very kind to me. They have a number of my signed books and have handled most of my book launches.
They have 3 of mine left from the 11 that I sent them. So before I pick them up, they're still there.
I think we have time for one more question. Do anybody want to recommend somebody else's book? Your favorite book, or a book that you think that people should really read, and why?
I'll start. So I think my favorite book of last year was And Now She's Gone by Rachel Halsell Hall. She's a fellow Black woman crime writer. She sets her books in LA. And I love the book because it's kind of a really great mix between a procedural, it's a PI, and then also with psychological suspense, with kind of this really great secondary story about a woman who kind of falls in love with the wrong guy. So I think if you like both those genres, which I do, then you want to expand your reading, so you're not just reading, white men, you should definitely check out Rachel.
What was the name again?
Rachel
Halsell.
Halsell Hall, And Now She's Gone.
No, she's gone. Anybody else?
Yes.
I already held up my 3 in the first session, so I'll just sit this one out.
I just read Susan Isaacs' Shining Through. I had read all of her books before, but had not read that one because I had seen the movie and thought, well, I'll wait for a while to read that. And of course, once again, the book was so much better than the movie. but
Mhm.
Susan Isaacs has a delightful sense of humor. She writes across genres and is just a fun read.
I have two. I will recommend Sally Handley's Stop the Threat. It's not a cozy, but our cozy critique group critiqued that book. And it's a not put, you don't put it down. It's really, really good. And we had to get it, month by month. And I was at the edge of my seat waiting for the next installment of Stop the Threat. And I read and write cozy. So for me to say it's a thriller and it's really, really good. And as Sally knows, because we're also in a book club together, my all-time favorite mystery is called Dog on It by Spencer Quinn. We're reading it in the book club because of my recommendation, and it will be, I think, my fourth time reading it, and it cracks me up every single time. I just love that book. Spencer Quinn, Dog on It, and he's written a whole series. And I just love Chet, who is the main character, and Chet writes the book. And Chet is a mixed breed German Shepherd. And the only thing he does different than any normal dog is he writes books. He doesn't have any other miraculous skills. Boy, is he a good
Oh,
writer.
is that all?
He's a complete dog, except for the fact that he has written this book. I quote Chet pretty regularly because he is a very wise dog and funny, very funny.
Anybody else?
Well, I kind of recommended the books that I recommended, including the ones that have just been mentioned, but I also read Lexi Campbell for the first time, and I have to say, I totally enjoyed her. What a character. Talk about a character. So if you haven't read Katrina's Lexi Campbell series, give it a try.
This is where I say she's not me. I don't think any of those things. Those are not my thoughts.
Oh, but I pictured you throughout.
Oh no, I'm lying. Of course they are. They absolutely are. She says everything I thought, but didn't say.
Well, I especially loved your reflections on American behavior, which is,
Yes.
in case you
Also-
don't know what the character is from Scotland and has ended up in California and is divorced and out of work and stumbles into a murder mystery. And it's just, yeah, it's very, very funny, enjoyable, quite enjoyable.
It's all said with every bit of the love from the deepest part of my heart.
Yeah, and it feels that way too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's not mean, but it's just, California is not Scotland. There you go.
And I think that's a good note to leave on. We have run out of time. I want to thank all of y'all for being here because y'all have done a great job. Y'all made it so easy for me just talking. This is really what I wanted. I want to thank everybody that's listening. Please go buy their books. These ladies are doing this for free. They're here today just out of the goodness of their hearts. So please go out and buy their books.
Thank
I
you,
don't-
Howard.
And thank
Thank
you,
you,
Howard,
Howard.
Thank you
very
so much.
And
Bye.
thank the Greenville Library.
Bye.
Yes,
Yes, thank you
thank
guys.
Yes, thank you, Green.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Howard, for moderating this fantastic event. Thank you to Sisters in Crime, Upstate South Carolina, for sponsoring this. We so appreciate you and your mission. We've all learned so much today, all the aspiring writers listening in. I know you've got great tips that you've written down. You can check out some of these authors' books here at the library, and of course, check out those links posted in the chat and in this video description if you're interested in purchasing the books. If you want the mystery love to continue, be sure to try out our virtual murder mystery called Murder on the Swamp Rabbit Express. That's available on our adult virtual classes and activities page. It's sort of like a virtual escape room. And as always, follow us on social media and sign up for our e-newsletter so you don't miss out on any of these great opportunities. Thank you for attending this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend and go read a book.